I was reminded of several stories in the Bible. One of my favorite ones is the life of Joseph. Joseph was a loved son by a man that was called Jacob. Jacob, and God changed his name to Israel, prince, from deceiver to prince. So that was a complicated dad. If you have a complicated dad, if you in your town, your dad is not known as the deceiver or the prince, you have it easy. See, this man had a son that was called Joseph. And Joseph was loved and preferred by God. Sorry, by Israel. Sorry, by Jacob. By, what was the name of your dad, Mom? And the reality of it is that it made his life complicated. What do you do when your relationship with your Father in heaven makes your life complicated? When you feel very loved by God, it means that you don't feel a lot of love around you. What is it that we have in our lives that sometimes we don't have the sensibility to understand love from a Father? Maybe it's because of the social structure that we live today, so socially engineered that we don't understand even the genders and the roles anymore. We have to fight in the daily to be able to be just one or the other. Whatever He, the Father, assigned. We're just in that social structure. Imagine how difficult it is to relate to what you cannot define anymore. And God is in a mission day in and day out to each one of us, not only to the people in these stories, to reveal His heart, because in this revelation hinges the depth, the revelation, the understanding, and how we obey, are transformed, and enjoy who He is. And He doesn't want to leave any of us behind in that sense. Every day, He wakes us up out of love, out of being a good Father. The challenges that we face, hello, is also out of, you're a good, good Father. I don't know if we sing that song with that knowledge or thinking about it. You're saying like, you're a good Father. All those situations, you already saw them. And I'm reminded of a moment where Jesus sent His disciples over to the other side. And I've been in that mountain, in that physical location, that territory. And you could see the other side. But they experienced a storm in the middle of that obedience, of that blessing, of following the Son of the good, good Father. If you've seen the Father, you've seen me. So essentially, they were following the Father. What is it that being loved produces in us? Some of us are not good even to get a hug. Forget giving a hug. But there's other people, man. They have hugs from heaven. Have you ever been hugged by a person that you said, that hug, my God. My God. I'm a hugger. I'm sorry. If I've hugged you before, if I haven't, I'll probably do it. Forgive me. If you don't like Him, run away. I'll be resourceful. I was reminded about another story because Joseph was loved and preferred, yes. But there's a man that was called David. And David was a man that was not liked by his father. By the contrary, his father was ashamed of him. I don't know if that's your story. I hope it's not. But David had that in his life. He had a lot of promises, a lot of gifts. He was awesome into many standards today still. In that moment, he had not committed his worst mistakes. He has done very little. And he still was rejected and hated. And some of us live lives that perform to be loved. But what you do if the only expression of father and authority you have rejects you and doesn't bring you in? And we're not talking only about a physical hug. We're talking about protection. And David, in that moment in his life that we have in 1 Samuel chapter 23, 29, verse 29, he was running from the second authority and the second figure of father that he had. It was his king. Because the king was observed as the father of the nation in that moment. We don't have that kind of title now for our presidents, right? Or our prime ministers or our kings. We don't see them as that father figure that we're looking after, isn't it? But David had that. It was ingrained in him. And while he was serving this second father figure, he was rejected again. He was about to be killed. So he had it more difficult than most of us, at least. Can we agree? And this man, God directed him to go to a place that was called Engadi. And in plain, that only means a spring, the spring of a young goat. So David is sent by God to this spring of the young goat. And he thought he was just getting protected only by God, because he needed protection. And sometimes we see the presence of God only through what we need, but know who he is. And God took David in his young age as a young goat. Goats are not the most obedient beings, the most obedient parts of nature and his creation. They're kind of cool. They're stubborn. And some of us like that. Sometimes. And David was there to be taught a lesson. He was going to be protected. But he wanted something deeper than that, and he still didn't know. He needed to be restored. And if it wasn't for that area, and that God did in his life, to be rejected twice, and ostracized, and pushed into the corner, he would have never found himself alone with God. He would have never known that he really needed restoration. But a spring is not for nothing. He needed to be refreshed. And some of us actually walk with God, talk with God, talk about God, do things for God, with God, and in the name of God. That means that you didn't do it with him. And sometimes we don't take the time to understand that we need to be not only restored, refreshed. And in a day like today, God doesn't want to lose one beat. As a father, he says, I don't want to love you and prefer you. Maybe I'm not making accounts between you and a sibling, but I prefer you every time I wake you up in the morning and I give you the gift of breath and strength to keep on going, to seek me again, to do the right thing, to take the right example, to take the right model and apply it to your heart and life. He also wants to say, hey, you don't have me only to protect you. I want to restore you and I want to refresh you. We got to learn how to deal with this distance that sometimes we have with the Father. But I was reminded about another moment in the Bible. And it was where the real goat comes in. It's Jesus. You got to brag a little bit when you say Jesus, Because if we are true and honest, when we say the name of Jesus, you don't need to know how to pray. Demons tremble. Things fall from your life. Your mind is restored. Scientifically proven. It is not your eloquence when you pray. It's to who? And his name is Jesus.